What did you go through when you came to know that you lost your father because of a prescription error? Did you feel being deceived against pharma because you came from the same industry?
I was angry and I knew exactly why, because I had already been trying to help our people. I was in continuing medical education for a long time and was really frustrated with how poorly science was communicated. Trust is job one, and that comes from connecting to purpose. I think the biggest mistake we've made in our industry is not taking that purpose off the wall and putting it into the hearts and hands of the people.
In an industry as powerful as pharma, influence isn't just a skill, it's a responsibility. The kind that can help or harm. Today's episode is about that responsibility.
The trust that you build by sharing that information will open the door for greater conversations. Always leading with integrity is absolutely paramount.
Jill Donahue, a leader who has spent years teaching teams across pharma that persuasion is not manipulation. It's a moral craft, one rooted in integrity, humanity, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right for patients. Her story will change the way you think about communication, behavior change, purpose, and trust.
When you connect with your purpose, that mindset then changes what you're thinking, saying, and doing. It starts with a mindset of being driven by your purpose, ultimately to help people.
People want to know the answers to that. Why can't we are spending billions of dollars in coming up with new innovations, but we can't find a cure? Why is that?
I wouldn't be alive today without medical intervention. What my uncle died from, I survived because of innovation, thanks to pharma. My husband, simple asthma, he wouldn't be alive today. And I challenge you, the person that's questioning this, who in your family wouldn't be alive today without pharma innovation, without our scientists, without the work that we do?
What's the one change you believe pharma must prioritize right now?
Well, you know what I'm going to say.
Here's my conversation with Jill Donahue. Jill, welcome to Drug Diaries. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to say something from the heart. Over 93% of the people who watch this podcast regularly haven't subscribed. And listen, I get it. Life is busy. You click, you watch, you move on. But if you've ever felt like this show brings you value, if it has made you think, sparked a new idea, introduced you to something inspiring, then I have a small favor to ask. Please hit that subscribe button. It might not seem like much, but to me, it means everything. This podcast has always been a labor of love. No sponsors, no script, just honest conversations with people trying to make a difference in the world of healthcare. And your support, your one click, helps me keep doing that. It helps more people discover these voices. It helps this community grow. So if you're here, if you believe in this, please consider subscribing. Thank you for being here. Now let's get into the episode. Every so often, life gives us a moment that forces us to stop and see things differently. A moment that strips away the noise and leaves one truth behind. Every system, every medicine, every decision in healthcare touches a human life. And in an industry as powerful as pharma, influence isn't just a skill. It's a responsibility. The kind that can help or harm. Today's episode is about that responsibility. And about one woman who turned a deeply personal tragedy into mission to transform how our industry influences. Her name is Jill Donahue, a leader who has spent years teaching teams across pharma that persuasion is not manipulation. It's a moral craft, one rooted in integrity, humanity, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right for patients. Her story will change the way you think about communication, behavior change, purpose, and trust. And there's one moment in this conversation, you will know when you hear it, that may change how you see this industry forever. So with that, let's begin. Here's my conversation with Jill Donahue. Jill, welcome to Drug Diaries.
Thank you, Kaushik. What a lovely introduction. You had me mesmerized. That was great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to be here.
It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. And I'm so glad you joined us today.
I feel the same way. Thank you.
So, Jill, we often talk about purpose as if it arrives fully formed. But in reality, purpose usually begins as a wound. Something that breaks us open just enough to let the meaning in.
Mm-hmm.
And Jill, your journey didn't start in a boardroom. It started in a deeply human place. And I think understanding that moment is the key to understanding everything you've built since. So take me back to the morning that changed everything for you. the moment that
Mm.
made you see the world of healthcare differently?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So that morning, I was in the ICU with my father, and we were trying to figure out what was the problem. And I overheard the nurse in the ICU sort of shockingly exclaim to herself, "Oh my gosh, here it is." And it was a preventable prescribing error that was causing his problem, and he died the next day. So for me, being a pharma professional, I just stood back and thought, what if dad's doctors, MSL, CAM rep, whomever, had been better able to access and engage him to know the right product at the right time for the right patient. And so like I mentioned, I was already in pharma, and I was fascinated with behavior change because when I joined the industry, I noticed that we were really strong in the life sciences. We taught that well, we trained on that well, but the behavioral science, how we communicate that information so it engages the person in front of us, that muscle was a lot weaker. So I started studying that and did my master's in adult education with a focus on influencing healthcare behavior change. And then after dad died, I really dove into it and started interviewing, world-class thought leaders like the Daniel Pinks and the Mel Robbins and Gretchen Rubins of the world, Adam Grants, to see how their ideas could help us with in our industry. And I was so excited about what I was learning. I wanted to, shout it from the rooftops. So I wrote a couple of books, really big books with everything, right? And of course, people
Right.
don't change behavior from a book per se. So I started speaking around the world, and then that has led to this glorious career of helping people, helping pharma teams love their work and do it better. So, like you said, from pain, that crack, that hurt drove me to purpose.
I'm really sorry to hear about your loss, and I would like to know, what did you go through when you came to know that you lost your father because of a prescription error? What was your immediate reaction, and how did you feel in that moment? Did you feel being deceived, or you
Mm-hmm.
had skepticism, anger, frustration against pharma because you came from the same industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was angry, and I knew exactly why, because I had already been trying to help our people. I was in continuing medical education for a long time and was really frustrated with how poorly science was communicated. How we, like I said, knew the science, but didn't know how to deliver it in a way that would impact people's behavior. So I was already fascinated with this, and I had been raised also, when you look at where purpose comes from, it sort of evolves through life. And I've been raised, my parents were both really beloved teachers who taught me the importance
Right.
of helping other people, serving other people, the importance of education. And dad had had a heart attack when I was in high school, so I was interested in healthcare. That led me into pharma in the first place, where when I was a rep, I was really frustrated with some of the things that they were teaching us to do. And I thought, this isn't influencing behavior change. And, then I started studying the 5 steps behavior change, et cetera. And I was really frustrated knowing all this was going through my mind right after, when I was analyzing how we could have prevented dad's death, that we're just not doing it right. There's a better way to do this. There's a better way. And so that's what I spent the rest of my days working on, is how can we do it better? How can we communicate, impact, persuade, engage, whatever word you want to use? How can we do it better so that we can be trusted partners with healthcare professionals to create better outcomes?
And I think that takes me back to my days as a rep, or in one of those assignments, I was working with a pharmaceutical rep. And this is decades ago, many, many years ago. I was on a field visit with this gentleman, and we were talking about this drug which was launched for the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. And we went to a doctor's visit, launching the product for the first time. And he detailed the product and came out. And I said, you know what, you missed something important. There's this thing that we need to inform the doctor about, removing the drug from the system before a woman plans to conceive. The
Mm-hmm.
washout period. I'm forgetting all the terms now. It's been many decades. So why didn't you tell the doctor about this? He said, if I tell the doctor, he will exclude all young women from
Yeah,
the prescription. I said, but that's an important point. He
right.
said he would just see it as an excuse to not prescribe my drug. And that's an ethical dilemma, I think. But I think those are some of the situations that people come across. On the one hand, they've got their sales targets, and on the other hand, they've got this information that they they must pass on to the HCP,
Yeah.
right?
I believe very much that when we focus on what is best for the patient, profits will follow. And the trust that you build by sharing that information will open the door for greater conversations, more leading with integrity is absolutely paramount. It's interesting, I was teaching this group of sales reps years ago. And I was teaching about the 5 steps of behavior change and what a doctor thinks at each step and what you need to do to move them forward. And then I had this moment where I thought, oh my gosh, they could use this behavioral science for manipulation. And of
Mm,
course, manipulation is a bad word. We don't want to
yeah,
manipulate, right? Um, and I thought, then I consoled myself by saying half of them aren't even going to get in to see the doctor because they were missing that certain something,
mm,
which was that trust, that integrity, that being purpose-driven, patient-focused. They were missing that. And that's what then sparked me to then go, how do I articulate that? How do I teach that purpose, that patient centricity? Because in our business, purpose ultimately relates to helping people, help people, help people, help patients, right?
yeah.
And so that began my journey right about then. 2009 is when Simon Sinek came out with the Start With Why, the Golden
Hmm.
Circle. And while being purpose-driven had been in the literature for decades before, he made it very visible with his TED Talk that spread like wildfire. And so there was an abundance of research in the literature on how to be purpose-driven. And so from then, that's when things really soared, when I dove into how do we communicate purpose and how do we teach that to pharma people. And that's where I've spent most of my time doing since then, because it's
Right.
foundational. It's completely powerful.
Yes.
Before you can do those 5 steps behavior change, the foundation has to be that you're purpose
Yeah,
driven. You're focused on the common goal of creating better patient outcomes.
absolutely. So well said. And one thing I find fascinating is that persuasion is everywhere, in
Mm-hmm.
every conversation, every negotiation, every interaction. But ethical persuasion, that's rare. It's almost a lost art. And yet in healthcare, it might be the most important tool we have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how you define it, especially when the stakes involves people's lives. And
Mm-hmm.
let me put this question more simply. Most people think persuasion is manipulation,
Right.
and you teach the opposite. So
Correct.
explain that flip.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could think of it this way. I sure wish my dad's doctor's MSL knew how to persuade, knew how to engage him, knew how to influence him ethically. We are all influencing people every day. Daniel Pink wrote a book, To Sell is Human, saying, get over it, guys. We're all influencing people every day, from going to the coffee shop. You're influencing the barista to smile at you, to make your coffee just when you're holding the door so somebody will smile at you. Whatever it is, we're all influenced every day. The shift for me, for people, is it's about serving people. Purpose comes from serving others. And when we
Yeah.
focus on how we're helping people, that's when you'll do your best engagement. That's when you'll get your best engagement. That's when you'll have the most influence, impact. The very different word is manipulation. That is not okay. And that's
Mm,
the other thing I'll just mention, Kaushik, that you cannot put purpose on as a strategy. It
yes.
has to be from the heart. People are smart. They'll see right through it. So that's why
Yes.
it's so important for people to get in touch with, why does this work matter to you? Why do you care? Where does that come from? And so that's when I teach the 3-legged stool of purpose to help people understand how to get that, so then they can create that trusted persuasion, that trusted influence. It starts with connecting with why you care and where that purpose comes from for you.
Right. And what does ethical persuasion look like in a real pharma HCP interaction?
Well, it looks like we're both on the same team, the patient's team, right?
Mm,
Having a conversation to address the physician's needs, the patient needs, which reflecting the patient's needs, working together to create better patient outcomes. I talk about wearing the patient jacket. It's not my product, my company, my drug. I'm here to help you with XYZ type patient. The doctor might not even know what company I'm representing. I
yeah.
should be an expert on all the treatment options for that disease state. I should be an expert on all the possibilities and present them, because there is the right product for the right time for the right patient. There's
Yeah.
enough to go around.
Right.
So to me, ethical persuasion is about working together on the same team with the same goal to create a better outcome for the patients.
Very well said. And how can influence be taught without compromising integrity?
So I go back to connecting with why you care. When you connect with your purpose, that mindset then changes what you're thinking, saying, and doing. It starts with the mindset of being driven by your purpose, ultimately to
Mm.
help people. When you have that mindset, it changes so much. From the language you use, like I just said, from my drug to competitor to our competitor, that's another patient treatment option.
Mm.
So it changes everything. So for me, it begins with having the mindset of being purpose driven, then creates the energy, it creates the action. This is how we pull people instead of push people as well. It's just foundational to everything.
Jill, there's a quote I love that data makes you think, but stories make you care. And
Yes.
and your work blends both the science of influence and the lived experiences behind it. And sometimes a single story can say more about the industry than 100 PowerPoint ever could. So, can you share a story when persuasion led to better patient outcome or one where it didn't?
Oh my gosh, so many. I love hearing stories from clients. So a senior executive was telling the story the other day of a bunch of reps were sitting around the table, and they said that one of the reps was doing a lunch and learn, and the doctor came in and said, "Oh my gosh, I think," and it's for rare disease, so hard to find these patients, right? And the doc came in and said, "I think I have a patient. You just made a sale." And the whole room audibly gasped, like they were all offended. And she said to him, "Doc, you don't know me yet. I didn't make a sale. I just lived my purpose. I'm here to help you help patients. And if we just found a patient, we all won." She was insulted that the doctor had that stereotype of her, and that her reaction, she wanted to share with him that she was truly and authentically there to help him help find the patient, right? So
Yeah.
it opens doors. Reps talk about the doctor was about to leave the room. I threw out my purpose story. He turned around. I didn't realize he had such blue eyes. He took his hand off the doorknob and sat back down because he saw me for the first time. I saw the doctor. I connected with the doctor the first time. "Doc, I know to you I look like every other farmer out there. I think it's important for me to share with you why I'm here and what my intentions are. My story is this. And that's why I'm here today and want to talk to you about XYZ." So we hear these stories from reps about how they then become the one. "Kausha, come on in." "Yeah, come on in, right? You're the one. I trust you." So they get greater access, differentiation. I've had reps say, "I was about to leave. I felt like it was too much about the data, the numbers. And then when we did this exercise and I connected with purpose, and if this is the direction my company's going, I'm going to stay." And I said to that rep, I said, "I bet your doctors love you." And she said, "Yeah, I'm number one in my territory." So she was number one in her, sorry, not her territory, in her geography. She was number one in the country, and she was about to
Right.
leave until we started connecting with purpose and purpose-driven persuasion. She was okay to stay. So there's so many examples of getting greater access, greater engagement, better conversations. Another story of reps at a formulary committee in the hospital. And those meetings, it's usually arms crossed, next, give us your data.
Yeah.
They did it differently. They decided to start with, and they said, "We're going to do this differently. We want to start with why we care, why we're here." And they shared their purpose stories. I call them ignition stories. There's purpose stories, the long version, and then there's ignition stories, a 5-sentence version. They shared their ignition stories. And they said the table leaned in, shared their stories. They went 2 hours longer,
Oh my
ultimately
God.
got the drug listed, had a real conversation about how to help these patients. It was great, they said. So, yeah, even just sharing your story, going around the table, I had someone say, they're going around the table, "Who are you?" Introductions. And she dared to share why she cares, her
Yeah.
ignition statement. And she said it was silent after it. And then someone said, and she was worried, like, "Oh my gosh, I just went off script." And then someone said, "Well, that was the best introduction we've ever heard. I can't wait to work with you."
Wow.
So these are the types of, it opens doors, right? It changes, it just changes everything. I gave
Yeah.
you more than one example there, Gosh. Sorry, you asked for
Oh,
one.
absolutely. That was so powerful. And I think the fact that it's so important to establish your trust and credibility and your integrity
And your
before you
intention.
talk
Yeah,
about anything else, and your
that's right.
intention, rightly said.
Yeah.
And how often we just assume that the doctor is extremely busy and we don't have time to
Get to the point.
go through all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just get to
Yeah.
the point. The doctor isn't here to listen to my story. Why am I here? They don't care. Uh,
But they do.
they do. They do.
Yeah. I'll say to MSLs, when I teach them how to make science engaging, I'll say the first 30 seconds of your presentation will make or break the engagement of the audience, and it better not be your disclosure slide. Oops, because that is exactly what it is.
Right. And during your training sessions, have you come across any such objections from the rep that I started to tell my story and the doctor wasn't interested? They didn't want to know about my purpose. They wanted to get to the point straight away. Uh,
I've never heard that. No. No, you're not given the 400-word version of your purpose
mm,
story, right? You're
yeah.
just starting with why I care. And sometimes it's not even sharing your story. It'll come through in how you speak,
Yes.
right? I've helped them change, for example, emails like that say, Doc, I'm going to be in your area. I'd like to book a meeting. Like, all of who does that rep have top of mind, right? Themselves. Shift it to the mindset of want to help and change the email to say, because of this, I care and want to talk to you, help you with this. I'm going to be in the area. Would you like some help on XYZ? Totally different response when you shift that. So yeah, I've never heard a story in all my years of a doctor who shut them down because they were sharing
Mm,
why they cared. In fact, often it goes further, they get more time, and then the doctor reflects and goes, yeah, I kind of forgot why I cared too. This is reminding me about why I got here, right? So you have that
yeah.
influence. Because they get busy too. They've got too big a to-do list and they lose track of their purpose too. So it helps them
Absolutely.
remember theirs.
And I think it's more than just about narrating a script. It's about
Hmm.
communicating your intention
That's
with
right. Through
authenticity
everything. Yeah.
through everything,
Yeah.
not just
Not just your
as
intro,
intro.
but it has to follow through, right? With
Yeah.
all your
Def-
actions and your words and your behaviors, of
yes.
course. Yeah.
Jill, behavior change is funny. It's one of the hardest things to sustain. It's like going to the gym in January and motivation is high, but habits are fragile. I'm
Hmm.
curious, why do you think the same thing happens inside pharma teams?
Yeah.
So usually after attending the training, the motivation levels are high. People follow everything
Yeah.
that you suggest, but slowly it starts to fade away, and people get back to their normal ways of working.
Yeah. Yeah. We, um, of course, creatures of habits. I say micro habits create macro results. So
Mm,
at the end of our training, we have a purpose to performance brainstorm with what are you going to do to keep this alive through the rainy days, through the to-do list, through the restructures, right? What are the things that you're going to do? And this ranges from everything from personal well-being. What are you going to do every day to put the oxygen mask on first so you can live your best life and be purpose-driven? All the way to meetings. How are we going to run meetings differently so we can keep this top of mind? To mindsets, to goals. What are we going to say yes to and no to? What are the questions we're going to ask ourselves? So there's things, and that's something I'm working on. Actually, it's the next book I'm working on is a morning mindset strategies to create this ongoing so that you can fuel yourself. And what are you going to do with your team to help fuel that team? How are we going to change our hiring, our training, our onboarding policies to keep this at an
yeah.
organizational level? I'm working on that with companies, right? Like, how do we create this in a culture?
Mm,
What are the reminders that we're going to give people? What are the videos we're going to show? There's just so many things that people can do to fuel this. The key is to realize that this is something that we need to fuel.
yeah.
It's a choice. Being purpose driven and persuading from this foundation of purpose is a choice we make. And
Right.
and it's a lovely choice. There's so much evidence out there that people who do this are happier, they do better, their companies are more profitable. Like there's just incredible evidence out there that if this was a drug, every company would want it. So
Yeah.
how do we take this vitamin P every day is what we work on individually with each team in each organization. And it's different for each group depending on, which group it is and what they're working on, but with common denominators. It is so worth it to do it. It's a
Yeah.
choice. I say to people, there may have been a time in your life when you thought happiness is something that's over there, maybe after the
Mm.
kids are out of diapers or after you finish your degrees or after, right? And then at some point in adulthood, you realize, oh, wait a minute, happiness is right now. This is my choice to create it right now in my current situation. Same thing with purpose and having purpose influence everything you say and do. That is a choice you make. You don't just make it once, though. You make it every day. Same with happiness, right? So that's what we
Yes.
try to do is help people make that choice to be purpose driven by connecting inside why this matters to them, why their company purpose matters to them beyond just serving their family, right?
Mm.
There's a lot of aspects to purpose. So we talk about what is purpose and how that works, how you fuel it. And then what do you do to continually fuel it? Because like you said, behavior change is tough to sustain. So we want
Yes.
this to become part of who you are daily.
Yes.
That's all. And
Absolutely.
when you do, it's worth it. You see the benefits, so it encourages you to continue to do it.
Yeah. And I've noticed something in conversations with leaders. Everyone talks about purpose, but very few
Mm-hmm.
can prove it.
Yeah,
And yet the companies that somehow operationalize purpose not as a slogan but as a system often outperform the rest.
that's right.
So I
Research
would
proves
I
that
would
too.
yeah. So I would love your view on how purpose goes from a nice concept to real
Yeah,
metric. How can we
yeah.
make purpose measurable?
Yeah. Oh, such a great question. So purpose originally, people thought we'll just put it on our websites, right? So there was a time where it
Yeah.
wasn't even on our websites. And then it's on every website, right? Some version of improving healthcare, right? Reimagining medicine to change lives. Some version that sounds lovely,
Mm.
but does it work? Do people buy it? Not so much. So what I think the biggest mistake we've made in our industry is not taking that purpose off the wall and putting it into the hearts and hands of the people. And that is an individual effort. And it takes effort. Yeah. It's not enough to just tell people, be purpose driven. Like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
We have to help people see why that matters to them and help them feel their own flame. We can't motivate people. We have to help them motivate themselves.
Yeah.
So what makes this sustainable is taking it off the wall and putting it into individuals' hearts and hands. And that's what we've been working on is helping people connect with the three-legged stool of their
Mm.
purpose. And if you'd like, I can just outline that for you briefly
Yeah.
here.
Please. Yeah.
So if you picture three circles meeting in the middle, I called it the
Mm-hmm.
three-legged stool of purpose. This really helped me with how I pictured purpose. Because when everyone said to me, be purpose-driven, I was like, my purpose are my three daughters and my husband and my mother with Alzheimer's. Like, that's what I work for, right? Serve them, right? That's my purpose. Yes, absolutely. That's my personal purpose.
Yes.
So everyone has some version of family, faith, friends that is their personal purpose. Then we work for these amazing organizations that have a beautiful purpose as well. And we can look up our purpose on the website. That's the second leg of this stool, right? That's the organizational purpose. The third leg of the stool is your role purpose. And that is, why am I here? How am I helping people help people help people help patients? What is the connection of that dotted line to the organizational purpose? Clearly, I'm doing a good job serving my personal purpose, right? The remuneration that you're getting, great. You're serving your personal purpose. How do you connect the piece that's missing? And Dan Pink says it nicely. He says, pharma has a really good capital P, purpose. We're here to save lives. It's that small p, your role purpose, that people need to work on. And the more that you connect that small p to the capital P, smoother things are. Then that stool is even. Right now, it's sort of a two-legged stool with a third leg a little too short, and it's wobbly. But when we connect with, why am I here? Why does this work back to me? Where does my desire to help people come from? Because as I said earlier, purpose comes from serving others. So, and all you have to do is look in the paper to know, look in the news, right? To know that not everybody wants to help others. But people in our industry, they do. And it may not be the patient for you, right? You may have got into it in your department where you feel so far away from it. That's okay. We're all here to help the patient. But why do you care about helping people? And that's what I was saying to you, Kasha, before we started. I'm dying to know why
Yeah.
you care so much that you do this podcasting for fun, right? We all have a story. And that's, back to your question, what we need to do in organizations is help people connect why they care to the organization's purpose. And that's when magic happens.
Wow, that's beautifully explained.
Good. I'm glad. The three-legged, so it took me a while to get to that when we first started talking
Yeah.
about purpose. Because if you ask someone, what is purpose?
Yeah.
You just get silence. It's very hard to define. You can say, it's the difference you make in the world. The difference your organization makes in the world is a nice way of saying it too. And then to understand individual purpose, that three-legged stool seems to help because people can't get beyond my purpose is my family. Absolutely. That's your personal purpose. And you can have more. You can have meaning at work too, right? Work can be
Yeah.
more than just feeding your family. It can provide deep meaning and motivation. And that then drives better results because it changes how you think and what you say and what you do and creates those better results. So it's just a complete win-win-win story.
Right. And how do you see your Venn diagram with three circles and compare it with the concept of ikigai? Do you see any?
Same.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can use that word. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Doing something you love that helps the world, that makes a difference. Yeah. That you're good at. Yeah. It
Yeah.
all fits in very well.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And Jill, trust is such a fragile currency. It takes years to
Sure.
build and seconds to lose. And when you think about pharma, an industry literally tasked with saving lives, trust should be its strongest foundation. And yet, we all know that's not always the case. I'd love to explore where you think the cracks appear and where do you think the trust gap between pharma and public really lies?
Do we have a few days? So when we look at our trust problem, it's interesting when we go back to 1950 and you see, the famous quote by George Mark that talked about when we focus on the patients, the profits have followed. They never failed to appear. The better we focus on the patients, the better the profits have been. And Merck did a great job. And under his leadership, pharma or Merck was Fortune magazine's most admired company in the world. Imagine that.
Yes.
Imagine being a detail man back in the day, right? And that's all there was men, detail men. So what happened is the question. And I summarize that by saying the 1990s happened. And in the 90s, led by some thinking and writing by Milton Friedman, we had a philosophy that the movie Wall Street summarized very well with a famous line, greed is good. The Gordon Gekko character, greed is good, was the thinking at the time, the full focus on the shareholder. And, we had a nuclear arms race of increasing reps. We had practices that were questionable, and Hollywood captured those well. I mean, that's no secret. It's in, what's the movie called? Love and Other Drugs. There's lots of movies and books out there about the practices that we had that put big cracks in that trust. And we have to own that. And we're still making amends for that. The challenge now is when we look at the people that we need to partner with to create better outcomes. I ask you, do they, healthcare professionals, patients, stakeholders, who do they believe we, pharma people, have top of mind? Who do they believe we have top of mind? Ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's the impression that we need to change. We need to show them we are on the same team trying to help patients. And we can't just say that. We have to say why we care about that too. It's not enough to just say that's what we believe, because they're like, don't know about that. And here's my story. And this is why I believe it. This is where that comes from for me. Pharma people are beautiful, well-intentioned people. Like, I'm so wowed, I hear their stories all the time in this work, doing our Power of Purpose journey with them. And I used to, I'd go into the kitchen at the end of the day and share with my family, oh my gosh, you won't believe this person, their intentions and their story is so amazing. And then I thought, that's silly. I should really spread this further. So we created this book. Your listeners can have it for free because it's a volunteer project. It's called Dose of Inspiration. It has 100 purpose stories of pharma professionals, just 100. I've heard thousands at this point. And I tell you, I just love pharma people. They're just so good. And I want the world to hear these smart people with noble intentions who want to make a difference in the health of the the world. The public needs to hear these stories too, because
Yeah.
that crack in trust is big and it's a problem. Without trust, we can't engage. And that's
Yes.
what I say. This should be your number one issue. And as things are changing in the future, moving to more digital,
Mm.
we need to build trust. And that is from person to person, or all that other stuff isn't going to work. Trust is job one. And that comes from connecting to purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you started asking me where this trust problem comes from, and we could go on forever there, but that's just
Yeah.
a little quick summary.
Exactly. I think being from the industry, it really breaks my heart when people come up to
Hmm.
me and ask me some tough questions like, okay, so how many chronic conditions have pharma cured in the last 100 years? And we have no answers. And eh, I mean, it's true. I mean, you look at any chronic conditions, be it diabetes or cardiovascular conditions or any sort of mental disorders, there's no cure for these. And these are serious questions that people want to know the answers to. That why can't we are spending billions of dollars in coming up with new innovations, but we can't find a cure? Why is that?
Well, I go back to story numbers or statistics are just numbers, but stories make them real. And we could list all sorts of numbers and facts and everything, but I just take it back home. I wouldn't be alive today without medical intervention. What my uncle died from, I survived because of innovation, thanks to pharma. My husband, simple asthma, he wouldn't be alive today. And I challenge you, the person that's questioning this, who in your family wouldn't be alive today without pharma innovation, without our scientists, without the work that we do? So make it
Absolutely.
personal for people, because it's amazing, from the smallest of things to the largest of cancer, like living longer.
Mm.
My mother-in-law, who got on a trial and was able to extend her life to see one of her granddaughters born. Everyone has these stories. Make it real for people. Might be more closer to their heart.
When industries evolve, they usually do so slowly until suddenly they don't. So healthcare is at one of those tipping points. More scrutiny, there's more transparency, more expectations. And if we don't adapt intentionally, the system will adapt for us. So I'm curious, what's the one change you believe pharma must prioritize right now?
Well, you know what I'm going to say, right? Yeah, it's connecting to our purpose, right? To your individual, to your team purpose, to your organizational purpose. That will guide us through the tsunami of change ahead. I think of it as a GPS. We are into some rough waters ahead,
Hmm.
and connecting to your why this work matters to you, what your intentions are, that will help you with that GPS. It reminds me of, you may recall the J&J Tylenol
Mm.
scare many
Yes.
decades ago now. It's just a historical story at this point. But where the Tylenol bottles, somebody was lacing them with cyanide and killing people. And J&J had to decide what to do. They had just reviewed their credo, which was so powerful about putting the patient first. And they decided, yeah, we're going to pull all the Tylenol from all the states. This
Mm.
was in the US, of course. And people said, oh, you're done. J&J is going to fall apart. They'll never recover. But that
Yeah.
didn't happen, did it? They
No.
became stronger than ever. That trust is still there. Reps, I have a friend who works for J&J, said that trust is still extended because of that episode. People still remember it, and it's still trustworthy. So as we go into these rough waters ahead, get that GPS strong. Get focused on your purpose. That will guide you through the rough waters. So I would say that is priority number one.
Jill, one of the biggest questions of our time is this. What happens when the technology gets faster than humans using it? We are entering an era where AI can influence, predict, and even personalize, sometimes better than people can. But the question is, should it? I would love your thoughts.
Such a big question. Yeah, I wonder the same thing. Gosh, I think there's always important and always room for person to person. I think that is just so essential. I think we can aid. I love what it's doing, what it's empowering us to do. And I'm scared as well.
Yeah.
I think we need to see how it can help us. And again, stay focused on what is the goal here,
Mm.
right? What is the goal? I think we have to be very conscious of too much. I was thinking, I can't get this story out of my head. I can't remember where I heard it now, but we're talking about, uh, yeah, people of days gone by work 3 or 4 hours a day, like back in the beginning of time. They
Yeah.
worked just a few hours a day because there was no point in picking more blueberries that would just go bad or killing more animals that they couldn't
Mm.
refrigerate. So they only worked a few hours a day. And I thought, yeah, but now we're at the point where we just keep going, getting more and more and more. But what's the point of getting more and more if there's nobody left to buy what you're producing because they don't have jobs, right? Like, so while we're taking the jobs away from people, is this making sense? Taking the jobs
Yeah.
away from people, well, now they can't buy what you're trying to sell.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about healthcare in
Yeah.
here per se, but just in general in society. So I think we have to be very conscious of what jobs we're taking away from people and putting into AI, because people need purpose. People need to contribute, and they need to make money so they can continue the cycle, the economy.
Exactly.
Conscious choices.
Agreed. And we keep hearing this all the time. The future doesn't belong to the smartest person in the room, it belongs to the most adaptable. And
Yeah.
in an industry as complex as pharma, adaptability is starting to look like its own form of intelligence. So I'm curious which skills you believe will define the next generation of leaders.
Pharma leaders in particular,
Yeah.
along this adaptability. Yeah, I think we are needing to change dramatically from the focus on the shareholder to the focus on the outcome, the focus on the patient. And that
Right.
will drive, interestingly, the shareholder. The problem is our leaders in our industry are excellent at following the
Mm.
science, right? I just want them to look at the behavioral science to see the evidence, the strength of the evidence that shows when you do focus on people, patients, the profits follow. There's a lot of P words in there, right?
Mm.
Focus on your purpose, your people, and the patients, the profits will follow. If they focus on that evidence, then I think they will be in good stand to move
Right.
forward. That is what they need to change. We can't use the old language. We can't use the old rule book. It's not sustainable.
And there's always this one thing, that one belief or lesson or truth that becomes the anchor of someone's entire career, something they wish everyone else could just see. And I get the sense that you have one of those too. If you could whisper one message into the ear of every pharma professional or every patient, what would it be?
Purpose comes from serving others. Focus
Right.
on how you can help someone else. That's where purpose comes from. Different cultures, different societies have different ways of thinking, but
Hmm.
even within that, just purpose comes from serving others. Think about how you can help fellow humankind, and you'll find
Right.
purpose.
So, Jill, one of the questions that comes to my mind always is, it's easy to find a purpose when you're doing something important. For instance, if you're the CEO of an organization or a doctor or a lawyer, you're making
Mm.
a big impact and
Mm.
you're making a big difference. What about common people?
Oh, such a good question. So we all know the doctor, the lawyer, or the CEO who is not purpose driven, don't we? Because it doesn't matter what your title is. You know, I say to people, can it be true that a doctor sees her work just as a job, while someone cleaning her office sees her work as purposeful? Can that be true? And yeah, right? You know, you've met those people. I love to, and why can it be true? Because it's up to the choice of the individual. I love telling the story about meeting Johnny Johnson. I'll challenge you and the listener. You've met a Johnny Johnson in your life, or many, right? So Johnny Johnson was the shuttle bus driver at the airport in Phoenix. My family had just gotten onto the shuttle bus, and his booming voice came over the loudspeaker where he was saying, "I'm so honored to be serving such a noble group of people." And then he went on to explain, "You people are the ones who actually planned a trip and made it happen. And my retirement joy is to make you smile." And anyway, I went up to him afterwards and I said, "Johnny, your energy is so great. Where's that come from?" And he said, "Well, I had a choice to make. I came here from my country where I had my master's, and this is the job I could get. So it was either about moving luggage or making people smile. And I
Right.
decided that my purpose was going to be to make people smile." And I said, "Well, you're doing a good job of it. You got me, my whole family smiling." I said, "I bet you make more money than the other guys." He said, "Yeah, I make about $100 a day." in tips. And I said, well, what do the others make? They only made 40. So he more than doubled his tips. And then he said, on my birthday, I made 500. I was like, oh my gosh. And then he said, and this was sort of the mic drop moment where I was like, well, that's my whole workshop right there. He put his hand on his heart and he said, people are smart. It has to come from here. And I was like, that's my whole cause, my whole point, right? This has to be authentic. People have to connect with why this matters to them. And then you see the beautiful results from it. Johnny went home happier, huge smile on his face, made other people happier. Plus, he had more money in his pocket, all from connecting with a purpose to serve others, something greater than himself, make a difference in the world in whatever small way you can. Whether you're cleaning bathrooms at an airport, I've just met someone the other day, purpose-driven, cleaning bathrooms at the airport, to working in finance. Like, it doesn't matter if you touch the patient in pharma. You work in IT, finance, marketing, you're a patient advocate, whatever. Doesn't matter. You make that choice to see how you're serving other people. What is the difference you're going to make in the world? Just like Johnny Johnson.
Wow, that's really inspiring. And Johnny Johnson has definitely inspired another individual today. And I'm sure other listeners will resonate with this story. Thank you for sharing. What's one small habit every professional in the industry could adopt tomorrow to make healthcare more human?
Yeah, and I love habits, those little things that you do every day that make a huge impact at the end. For example, a simple thing of focusing on gratitude each day, what you're grateful for, focusing on why you care, a little reminder every day of what I'm trying to do. What's the big picture here? I know I've got all this stuff here, but what's the big picture? What is the purpose? Focusing on that every day, just for a moment, whether you call it a meditation, an intention, a positive affirmation, whatever it is, focus on that at the beginning of the day. That habit could change things combined with some gratitude. Poof, very powerful.
Right. And Jill, legacy is an interesting word. Most people think it's something you leave behind once you're gone. But I always felt that it's what you leave in people, their thinking, their choices, the small ways they change because they met you. So I would love to hear how you define yours.
Gosh, that's such a big question. How do I define my legacy? I ask people this all the time. At the end of the day, what do you hope people remember about you? And I haven't thought about it for myself, but in this moment, thinking about it, I hope people are kind. I hope people assume best intent in other people. I hope that maybe because of some way I touch them, they give that to someone else, that kindness, that assumption of best intent, that help. I think if we all just help each other a little bit more, that's how the world goes around. So back to service, kindness, helping others. That's it. Pay it forward.
And Jill, that brings us to the end of our today's conversation. And I'm reminded of something you said earlier, that influence at its core is a responsibility to do better, to be better, and to serve something larger than ourselves. What we've heard today isn't just a philosophy. It's not just a framework or a training model or a set of principles for ethical persuasion. It's a lived truth born from a moment that could have broken you, but instead it built a mission. Jill, your willingness to turn heartbreak into purpose, to transform a personal pain into an industry-wide contribution is something rare. And it's a reminder that intention matters, integrity matters. How we show up, even in the smallest conversations, matters. And for everyone listening, whether you work in pharma or you're simply someone trying to make a sense of a complex healthcare system, today's conversation reveals something profoundly human. We influence people every single day. The question is, are we doing it consciously? Are we doing it ethically? Are we doing it with purpose? So, Jill, thank you. Thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, and for the work you've dedicated your life to. Thank you for helping us see the persuasion isn't a tactic, it's a responsibility. And when used it with heart and intention, it can change lives. It has been an absolute privilege having you on Drug Diaries. Your insights will stay with me, and I'm certain with everyone else who's listening today.
Thank you so much, Kaushik. Thank you for the work and the contribution you're making, bringing these conversations to light. So thank you. Really appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you for joining us today.